I'm Elena, 27, and I never imagined my own brother would steal $45,000 of my wedding fund to cover his gambling debts. What Tyler didn't realize was that by betraying me, he'd set in motion events that would lead to me inheriting a multi-million-dollar vineyard empire. The moment my fiancé's father placed those keys in my palm and said, "This is yours now," I knew my brother's greed had backfired in ways he could never have anticipated. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. Growing up in the rolling hills of Napa Valley, Tyler and I should have been the perfect siblings. Our family owned a modest bed and breakfast called Meadowview Inn, nestled between the towering estates of wine moguls and tech billionaires. Dad, Robert, managed the property while Mom, Patricia, handled the bookings and guest relations. To outsiders, we appeared to be living the California dream, surrounded by vineyards and endless sunshine. But inside our Mediterranean-style home with its terracotta tiles and wrought iron balconies, a different dynamic played out. Tyler, who was 4 years older, had established himself as the golden child from the moment I could walk. Where I was methodical and careful with money, saving every dollar from my part-time job since age 14, Tyler was impulsive and charming, the kind of person who could talk his way out of any situation. My parents' response to our different personalities set the tone for everything that followed. When Tyler crashed Dad's truck during his senior year of high school, they simply bought him a newer one. When I asked to borrow the family car for my part-time job at a local boutique, I was told I needed to prove I was responsible enough by walking to work for 3 months first. The pattern continued through college. Tyler chose UC San Diego for their business program, though he spent most of his time surfing and partying. My parents covered his full tuition, housing, and even sent him monthly allowances that he spent on spring break trips to Mexico. When I was accepted to UC Berkeley for agricultural economics, they congratulated me but explained that they'd already stretched their budget with Tyler's expenses. I would need to take out loans and work multiple jobs to cover my costs. Tyler needs more support right now? Mom explained when I expressed frustration about the disparity. He's still finding himself. You've always been so independent and capable. I worked 3 jobs during college, tutoring underclassmen, managing social media for local businesses, and weekend shifts at a farmer's market. Every spare dollar went into a savings account I'd opened specifically for my future wedding. Even at 19, I was the type of person who planned ahead, who believed in building something solid and lasting. During my junior year at Berkeley, I met Daniel at a wine tasting event that was part of my agricultural economics coursework. He was 2 years older, finishing his master's degree in viticulture and enology, with plans to return to his family's vineyard operations in Sonoma County. What struck me immediately wasn't his obvious knowledge about wine or his easy confidence, but the way he listened when I spoke about my dreams of combining hospitality management with sustainable agriculture. "You have vision," he said as we walked through the experimental vineyards on campus. Most people see the wine industry as either romantic or purely commercial. You see it as a system that could actually make a difference. Daniel came from a completely different world than mine. His father, Vincent Moretti, owned Moretti Estates, a prestigious vineyard that had been in the family for 3 generations. Their property encompassed over 800 acres of prime Sonoma County land, with a main house that looked like it belonged in Tuscany and a winery that produced award-winning Cabernet Sauvignon and Chardonnay. The first time Daniel brought me home to meet his parents, I felt intimidated by the sheer scale of their operation. The circular driveway was lined with century-old oak trees, and the main house featured soaring ceilings, original artwork, and floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the endless rows of grapevines. Vincent Moretti was in his early 60s with silver hair and the kind of commanding presence that comes from building something lasting. Despite his wealth and status in the wine world, he was surprisingly down-to-earth during our first conversation. "Daniel tells me you're studying agricultural," Economics, he said as we sat on the terrace overlooking the vineyards. What's your thesis focused on? I explained my research into sustainable farming practices and their long-term economic benefits for family-owned agricultural businesses. Vincent asked thoughtful questions, challenging my assumptions, but clearly engaged by the discussion. Most people your age think they can revolutionize agriculture with apps and technology, he observed. You understand that real change happens slowly, with careful attention to both the land and the business fundamentals. Daniel's mother, Isabella, was more reserved but equally welcoming. A former art curator who had given up her career to help build the family business, she shared my interest in the intersection of culture and agriculture. Their vineyard regularly hosted art exhibitions and cultural events, turning the wine business into something that enriched the entire community. Over the months that followed, I found myself drawn deeper into the Moretti family circle. Vincent began asking for my input on various business decisions, particularly around marketing to younger demographics and incorporating sustainable practices into their operations. Isabella invited me to help plan their seasonal events, appreciating my background in hospitality management. Meanwhile, my relationship with Daniel deepened. He shared my values around hard work and building something meaningful, but he also brought a sense of joy and spontaneity that balanced my sometimes overly serious nature. We would spend weekends exploring different vineyards throughout Northern California, learning about various approaches to winemaking and discussing our dreams for the future. I want to expand beyond just producing wine, Daniel told me during one of these trips. Dad's done an incredible job building the brand, but I think there's an opportunity to create something more comprehensive. Agritourism, educational programs, maybe even a culinary school focused on farm-to-table concepts. His vision aligned perfectly with my own ideas about sustainable hospitality. We began developing detailed plans for how we might transform parts of the Moretti property into an integrated agricultural and educational experience. After dating for 2 years, Daniel proposed during a sunrise hot air balloon ride over the Sonoma Valley. The ring was a vintage Art Deco design that had belonged to his grandmother, and the proposal itself was both romantic and practical. He had researched the weather patterns to ensure perfect visibility and had arranged for the balloon to land near a picnic he had set up in advance. "I can't imagine building the future without you," he said as he knelt in the basket while we floated above the patchwork of vineyards. "Will you marry me and help me create something amazing together?" I said yes without hesitation, knowing that I was committing not just to Daniel, but to a shared vision of what our lives could become. The engagement ring felt substantial on my finger, a symbol of the solid foundation we were building together. When we announced our engagement to both families, the reactions revealed everything about the different worlds we came from. The Morettis immediately began discussing wedding plans with genuine enthusiasm. Vincent suggested we hold the ceremony at their property, offering the vineyard's event facilities at no cost. Isabella started talking about seasonal flower arrangements and connecting us with the caterers they used for their high-end vineyard events. My parents' response was more complicated. They were thrilled about my engagement to Daniel, clearly impressed by his family's wealth and status. But when the conversation turned to wedding planning, financial realities quickly emerged. "We'll contribute what we can," Dad said carefully, during a family dinner where we were discussing initial plans. "But you know our situation with the inn. Most of our capital is tied up in the business." Mom nodded in agreement. "Perhaps something smaller would be more appropriate anyway. Intimate ceremonies are so much more meaningful." I understood their financial constraints and didn't expect them to fund an elaborate wedding. That's why I had been saving for years, building up what I now called my wedding fund. Between my college jobs, my current position as an agricultural consultant, and careful budgeting since graduation, I had accumulated $45,000 specifically for wedding expenses. The plan was to combine this fund with a contribution from Daniel's family to create a celebration that honored both of our backgrounds. Nothing ostentatious, but a beautiful ceremony at Moretti Estates, followed by a reception that would accommodate about 150 guests, family, close friends, and key people from both the hospitality and wine industries who had become important in our lives. Tyler's reaction to my engagement was enthusiastic on the surface but carried undertones that made me uncomfortable. "Danny boy's really moving up in the world," he said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Marrying into Vineyard royalty." "It's not about the money, Tyler," I replied, though I knew he wouldn't understand. "Daniel and I share the same goals and values." "Right, of course," Tyler said with a slight smirk. "Just happens to come with a nice inheritance bonus." His comment bothered me more than it should have, but I attributed it to typical sibling teasing. Tyler had always been slightly jealous of my academic success and career focus, though he'd never expressed it directly. At the time of my engagement, Tyler was living in San Francisco, working as a sales representative for a tech startup that specialized in restaurant management software. On paper, his career seemed promising. He had a base salary plus commission structure that could potentially earn him 6 figures. In reality, his income was unpredictable, dependent on his ability to close deals with restaurant owners who were often skeptical of new technology. Tyler had always been a risk taker, someone who believed in big payoffs rather than steady accumulation. During college, he had tried day trading with money from his part-time jobs, usually losing more than he gained. After graduation, he had invested in several ground-floor opportunities that his friends had recommended: cryptocurrency schemes, startup companies with revolutionary ideas, real estate investment courses that promised quick profits. None of these ventures had panned out the way Tyler expected, but each failure only seemed to fuel his belief that the next opportunity would be different. He lived in a studio apartment in the Mission District that cost nearly half his base salary, drove a BMW he was constantly behind on payments for, and maintained an active social life that included expensive dinners and weekend trips to Vegas. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. Our parents seemed oblivious to Tyler's financial instability, choosing to focus on his charm and confidence rather than examining the underlying reality. When he showed up to family gatherings with expensive clothes and stories about potential business deals, they saw success rather than concerning patterns. "Tyler's doing so well for himself," Mom would say after his visits. "He has such a natural talent for sales." I kept my concerns to myself, focusing instead on my own wedding planning and career development. Daniel and I had set a date for the following October, choosing autumn because it would be after the harvest season at Moretti Estates and would showcase the vineyard's fall colors. The wedding fund sat in a high-yield savings account at my local credit union, growing slowly but steadily toward our goal. I checked the balance obsessively, watching it inch closer to the $50,000 target I had set for covering our portion of the wedding expenses. 6 months before the wedding, I received a promotion at the agricultural consulting firm where I worked. The new position came with a significant salary increase and the opportunity to work with larger vineyard operations throughout Northern California. Daniel was equally successful in his role as assistant winemaker at Moretti Estates, where Vincent had begun giving him more responsibility for key business decisions. We felt like everything was falling into place. The wedding planning was progressing smoothly. We had found a perfect balance between elegant and personal in our choices, and our professional lives were building toward the future we had envisioned together. 3 months before the wedding, Tyler called with news that he was getting promoted to regional sales manager for his startup. The new position required him to relocate to Los Angeles, but came with a substantial salary increase and equity in the company. "This is exactly the break I've been waiting for," he told me during our phone conversation. "The company is about to go public, and my equity package could be worth serious money." I was happy for Tyler, hoping that this opportunity might provide the financial stability that had eluded him since college. When he asked to visit the weekend before his move to Los Angeles, I suggested he stay with Daniel and me in our apartment near Santa Rosa. It would give us a chance to spend time together before he relocated, and he could see more of the wedding preparations. Tyler arrived on a Friday evening in late July, carrying a weekend bag and his usual confident energy. He seemed genuinely interested in our wedding plans, asking detailed questions about the ceremony and reception arrangements. He spent Saturday touring Moretti Estates with Daniel and me, asking Vincent thoughtful questions about the winemaking process and the business side of vineyard operations. "You've really found your place," Tyler told me as we walked through the barrel room where hundreds of oak barrels held aging wine. "This whole world suits you perfectly." Sunday morning, Tyler asked if he could borrow my laptop to update his resume and handle some final details related to his job transition. I was at the farmer's market with Isabella, helping her select flowers for a vineyard event, so I told him to go ahead and use it. When I returned home that afternoon, Tyler was packing his bag with unusual haste. He seemed agitated, different, from the relaxed mood he'd maintained all weekend. "Everything okay?" I asked as he stuffed clothes into his duffel bag. "Yeah, just realized I have more to handle in San Francisco than I thought," he replied without making eye contact. "Need to get back and finish packing for the move." He left within an hour, giving me a quick hug and promising to call once he was settled in Los Angeles. Something about his departure felt off, but I attributed it to the stress of a major life transition. 2 weeks later, I received an email from my credit union about unusual activity on my savings account. The message was routine, part of their fraud prevention protocols, but it mentioned a large withdrawal that I didn't remember making. I logged into my online banking expecting to find a simple error or pending transaction that would resolve itself. Instead, I found a balance of $127.43 in the account that should have contained my wedding fund. My hands shook as I scrolled through the transaction history. 3 large electronic transfers had been made over the previous 2 weeks, each one authorized through my online banking system. The transfers totaled $44,873, representing virtually my entire wedding fund. The destination account was listed with only a routing number and account number I didn't recognize. My first thought was that my account had been hacked, that some sophisticated cybercriminal had gained access to my banking information. I immediately called the credit union's customer service line, explaining the situation to a representative, named Michelle, who sounded genuinely concerned about the unauthorized transfers. "I'm looking at the transaction details," Michelle said, after placing me on hold to review my account. "These transfers were initiated using your online banking credentials, and they include the 2-factor authentication codes that would have been sent to your registered phone number." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible. I never authorized these transfers, and I haven't received any authentication codes." "Let me check the phone number we have on file," Michelle said. After another pause, she provided a number that was 1 digit different from my actual phone number. "When was that number changed?" I asked, though I was beginning to suspect the answer. "The phone number was updated 2 weeks ago through our online system using your banking credentials and personal verification information." The timeline matched exactly with Tyler's visit and his request to use my laptop. I felt sick as the realization hit me. My own brother had systematically stolen my wedding fund, changing my contact information to facilitate the theft and covering his tracks by making the transfers over several days. "I need to file a fraud report," I told Michelle, my voice barely steady. "I believe a family member accessed my account without permission." The process of reporting the theft was both bureaucratic and emotionally devastating. I had to provide detailed information about who might have had access to my banking credentials, when and how the theft might have occurred, and documentation proving that I hadn't authorized the transfers. The most difficult part was admitting that my own brother was the likely perpetrator. Michelle was professional and sympathetic, but I could hear the skepticism in her voice when I explained that Tyler had used my laptop and might have accessed my saved banking passwords. Family member fraud cases are complicated, she explained, gently. The bank will investigate, but recovery of funds can be challenging when the perpetrator had legitimate access to the banking credentials, even if they misused that access. I spent the rest of the day calling Tyler's phone number, which went directly to voicemail each time. I sent text messages and emails, initially asking if there had been some mistake, hoping against hope that there was an explanation that didn't involve deliberate theft. By evening, when Tyler still hadn't responded to any of my attempts to reach him, I called my parents. The conversation was one of the most difficult of my life. "There has to be some misunderstanding," Mom said after I explained what had happened. "Tyler would never steal from you, especially your wedding money." Dad was more practical in his response. "Are you absolutely certain it was Tyler? Could someone else have accessed your computer?" I walked them through the timeline and evidence, explaining how the phone number change coincided with Tyler's visit, and how the transfers had been made using information only he could have accessed. "We need to talk to Tyler directly," Dad finally said. "Let us try to reach him before we jump to conclusions." Over the next 2 days, my parents attempted to contact Tyler through every means they could think of. His phone remained disconnected. His email bounced back as undeliverable, and when Dad called Tyler's workplace, they were told he had submitted his resignation via email and cleared out his desk without giving notice. The tech startup Tyler claimed had promoted him had no record of offering him a regional position. When Dad pressed for more information, Tyler's former supervisor reluctantly admitted that Tyler had been facing termination for falsified sales reports and inappropriate use of company resources. The picture that emerged was devastating. Tyler hadn't been promoted. He had been fired. The move to Los Angeles was likely an attempt to escape his mounting problems in San Francisco, and my wedding fund had provided the money he needed to disappear. Daniel found me on the couch in our apartment that Thursday evening, surrounded by bank documents and tissues, trying to process the full scope of Tyler's betrayal. The bank's fraud investigation could take months, I told him, my voice hollow with exhaustion. Even if they determine it was unauthorized access, there's no guarantee I'll recover the money. And Tyler has essentially vanished. Daniel sat beside me, pulling me into his arms with the gentle strength that had first attracted me to him. "We'll figure this out," he said quietly. "The wedding will happen, even if we have to change our plans." "It's not just about the money," I said, though the financial impact was significant. "It's knowing that my own brother could do this to me, that he could sit at our dinner table, tour your family's vineyard, and pretend to be happy for us while planning to steal from us." That weekend, we had to begin making difficult phone calls to vendors and guests, explaining that we might need to postpone or significantly scale back the wedding. The catering deposit we had paid was non-refundable, as was the cost for the flowers Isabella had already ordered from her preferred florist. Vincent and Isabella insisted on covering these costs themselves, refusing to let Tyler's theft impact our wedding plans. But accepting their generosity felt complicated, like admitting that my family couldn't provide what Daniel's family could. "This isn't about pride," Vincent told me during a private conversation in his study. "Family helps family, and you're family now. What your brother did reflects on him, not on you." His words were kind, but they couldn't erase the humiliation of having my own sibling steal from me, or the practical reality that my years of careful saving had been wiped out by someone I had trusted completely. 2 weeks after discovering the theft, I finally received a text message from Tyler's phone number. "Sorry about the confusion with the money. We'll pay everything back once my new business gets established. Needed a short-term loan for an investment opportunity. Love you, sis." The casualness of his message, the way he characterized theft as a loan and betrayal as confusion, made my anger flare into something sharper and more focused. Tyler wasn't just irresponsible or impulsive, he was manipulative and calculating. I showed the message to Daniel, whose usually calm demeanor cracked with visible anger. "He's treating this like he borrowed $20 for lunch," Daniel said, his voice tight with controlled fury. $45,000 of wedding money, and he calls it a loan. I tried calling the number Tyler had texted from, but it was disconnected again within hours. My response text bounced back as undeliverable. He had contacted me just long enough to make excuses, then disappeared again. The next morning, Vincent called and asked me to meet him at the Vineyard. When I arrived, he was waiting in the tasting room with a serious expression I'd never seen before. "I've been thinking about your situation," he said without preamble. "And I have a proposal that might interest." Vincent's expression was unreadable, as he gestured for me to sit across from him at the polished mahogany table in the Moretti Estates tasting room. The morning light filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting geometric patterns across the stone floor. But the beauty of the setting felt at odds with the gravity of our conversation. "What I'm about to share with you must remain confidential until we decide how to proceed," Vincent began, his voice carrying the weight of someone accustomed to making decisions that affected multiple generations. "Over the past month, I've been conducting my own investigation into your brother's activities." My confusion must have been evident because Vincent leaned forward, his weathered hands clasped on the table between us. "Elena, when someone attempts to harm my family, I don't simply wait for the authorities to handle it. Daniel is my son, and you are going to be my daughter-in-law. What Tyler did to you was an attack on all of us." The revelation that Vincent had been investigating Tyler independently sent a chill through me. I hadn't realized that the Moretti family operated with this level of protective intensity, though it made sense given their position in the wine industry and the wealth they had accumulated over 3 generations. "What kind of investigation?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Vincent reached for a manila folder that had been sitting beside his coffee cup. "I have contacts throughout California. Private investigators, financial analysts, people in various industries who owe me favors. When Daniel told me about the theft, I made some calls." He opened the folder, revealing photographs, financial documents, and what appeared to be surveillance reports. The thoroughness of the investigation was both impressive and slightly unsettling. "Your brother Tyler has been living in Los Angeles under an assumed name, Tyler Matthews instead of Tyler Chen. He's rented an expensive apartment in Beverly Hills using cash deposits and false employment documentation. More concerning, he's been frequenting high-stakes poker games and exclusive casinos, burning through money at an alarming rate." My stomach lurched as Vincent continued laying out photograph after photograph. Tyler at card tables surrounded by serious-looking men in expensive suits. Tyler enters and leaves luxury hotels at all hours. Tyler standing beside a red Ferrari that appeared to be either rented or borrowed. The $45,000 he stole from you was gone within 2 weeks, Vincent continued, his tone matter-of-fact but tinged with disgust. "But here's what's more interesting. Tyler didn't just steal from you. We've discovered he's been running a sophisticated identity theft operation, targeting people in the hospitality and agriculture industries." The folder contained documentation showing that Tyler had assumed at least 6 different identities over the past 8 months. He'd been applying for credit cards, taking out personal loans, and even attempting to secure business lines of credit using stolen Social Security numbers and fabricated employment histories. "How did you discover all this?" I asked, overwhelmed by the scope of what Vincent was showing me. "Money leaves trails when you know where to look," Vincent replied. "And people talk when you ask the right questions in the right way." Tyler made a critical error by targeting our industry. The wine and hospitality businesses in California are more connected than most people realize. Vincent produced a second folder, this one containing what appeared to be financial records and business documents. 3 weeks ago, Tyler attempted to secure a $200,000 business loan using forged documents claiming he was the heir to Moretti Estates. He submitted false paperwork suggesting he was Daniel's business partner and had a stake in our vineyard operations. The audacity of Tyler's scheme took my breath away. He wasn't just stealing money. He was attempting to trade on the Moretti family's reputation and success to fund his gambling addiction and increasingly desperate lifestyle. The loan application was flagged because our family attorney maintains relationships with most major lenders in Northern California, Vincent explained. When questionable documents surface involving our business, we're notified immediately. That's when I realized Tyler's activities went far beyond taking your wedding fund. I stared at the documents, trying to process the full magnitude of Tyler's betrayal. He hadn't just stolen from me in a moment of desperation, he was operating a criminal enterprise that threatened not only my financial security, but Daniel's family business. There's more, Vincent said, producing a third folder. Tyler has been researching your wedding plans in detail. He knows about the guest list, the vendors we've contracted, and the timeline for various payments. We believe he's planning something significant for your wedding day. The blood drained from my face as Vincent showed me printed emails and text, messages that Tyler had somehow intercepted or obtained. Messages between Daniel and me discussing vendor payments. Communications with the catering company about final headcounts. Even private conversations between Daniel's parents about wedding gifts and arrangements. How is he getting this information? I demanded, feeling violated and exposed. We're still investigating, but we believe he may have installed tracking software on your devices during his visit to your apartment. He's also been manipulating people in your extended network, presenting himself as a concerned brother who's helping with wedding planning. Vincent showed me evidence that Tyler had contacted several of our vendors, claiming to be coordinating payments on behalf of the family. He'd attempted to change delivery addresses for flowers and linens, redirect catering services, and even modify the timing for various wedding day services. None of these changes were successful because our vendors know to verify everything through established channels, Vincent assured me. But the pattern suggests Tyler is planning some kind of disruption or financial manipulation tied to your wedding. The investigation Vincent had conducted revealed a Tyler I barely recognized. This wasn't my impulsive, irresponsible brother who made bad financial decisions. This was someone engaged in systematic criminal activity, someone who saw my wedding as an opportunity for further exploitation. What do we do with this information? I asked, feeling overwhelmed by the implications. That depends on what outcome you want, Vincent replied. We could turn everything over to law enforcement immediately. The evidence we've gathered would likely result in federal charges for identity theft, wire fraud, and racketeering. Tyler would face significant prison time. The thought of my brother in federal prison made me physically ill, despite everything he had done. What's the alternative? We handle this privately, within the family, Vincent said, his tone suggesting this was his preferred approach. We use the information we've gathered to neutralize Tyler's threat to your wedding and our business, and we ensure he faces consequences that match his actions. Vincent's proposal was both appealing and frightening. The Moretti family clearly had resources and connections that could address Tyler's criminal behavior more efficiently than the legal system, but accepting their help would mean entering a world of influence and power that operated by different rules than I was accustomed to. What would handling it privately look like? I asked. First, we secure your wedding day against any disruption Tyler might have planned. My security team will monitor all vendor communications and ensure no unauthorized changes are made to your arrangements. Second, we recover the money Tyler stole from you, with interest, from assets he's accumulated through his criminal activities. Third, we ensure Tyler understands that any future attempts to harm you or our family will have permanent consequences. The way Vincent said permanent consequences suggested enforcement methods that went beyond legal remedies. I found myself both grateful for his protection and concerned about what accepting it might mean long-term. I need time to think about this, I said, though part of me already knew what my decision would be. Tyler had chosen to wage war against my future happiness and financial security. The Moretti family was offering to fight that war on terms that could actually win. Of course, Vincent agreed. But Elena, I want you to understand something important. What your brother has done isn't just theft or fraud. He's attacked the foundation of your marriage to my son. He's tried to steal not just your money, but your ability to start your life with Daniel on solid ground." Vincent's words resonated deeply. Tyler's betrayal felt personal not just because he was my brother, but because he had targeted the most important relationship in my life. He had attempted to sabotage my wedding, knowing how much Daniel and I had invested, emotionally and financially, in creating something meaningful together. "There's one more thing you should see," Vincent said, producing a final document from his folder. "Tyler has been researching Daniel's personal finances as well. Bank statements, investment accounts, even information about our family's estate planning. The violation felt complete. Tyler wasn't just stealing from me. He was attempting to infiltrate and exploit every aspect of my relationship with Daniel. The brother I had grown up with, who had shared family dinners and childhood memories, had transformed into someone who saw my happiness as an opportunity for financial gain." That evening, I met Daniel at our favorite restaurant in Santa Rosa, a small Italian place where we had celebrated our engagement 2 years earlier. The familiar setting felt surreal given everything I had learned about Tyler's activities. "Vincent told me about his investigation," Daniel said after we ordered. "I'm trying to wrap my head around everything he discovered." "It's like Tyler became a completely different person," I replied, still struggling to reconcile the brother I thought I knew with the criminal Vincent's investigation had revealed. Or maybe this is who he always was, and I was too close to see it. Daniel reached across the table to take my hand. "Whatever you decide about how to handle this, I support you completely. But Elena, you need to know that my father's offer isn't just about protecting you. It's about protecting our entire family business." "What do you mean?" "Tyler's attempt to use our family name for fraudulent loans could have damaged our reputation in ways that would take decades to repair. The wine industry operates on trust and relationships built over generations. If word got out that someone was successfully impersonating a member of our family to secure credit, it could affect everything from our banking relationships to our distribution agreements. The broader implications hadn't occurred to me, but Daniel was right. Tyler's criminal activities threatened not just my personal finances, but the Moretti family's entire business empire. Dad's investigation isn't just about justice," Daniel continued. "It's about protecting what 3 generations of our family have built. And now that you're going to be part of that family, protecting what we're building together." Over the next week, I found myself immersed in the details of Vincent's investigation in ways that felt both empowering and morally complicated. The evidence against Tyler was overwhelming, but the methods used to gather it operated in legal gray areas that made me uncomfortable. Private investigators had tracked Tyler's movements using techniques that seemed to border on stalking. Financial analysts had accessed records that should have been private. Even the photographs of Tyler at various casinos appeared to have been taken without his knowledge or consent. "How legal is all of this?" I asked Vincent during one of our meetings in his study. "Legal enough," he replied without elaborating. "Elena, your brother forfeited his right to privacy when he began stealing identities and defrauding innocent people. Everything we've gathered is admissible in court if we decide to pursue criminal charges." The moral complexity of the situation kept me awake at night. Tyler had clearly become a dangerous criminal who was actively trying to destroy my financial security and wedding plans. But accepting Vincent's help meant entering a world where problems were solved through influence, intimidation, and methods that operated outside traditional legal channels. My parents' reaction to Vincent's investigation was predictably complicated. When I finally decided to share some of the evidence with them, they struggled to accept the scope of Tyler's criminal behavior. "There has to be some explanation," Mom insisted, staring at photographs of Tyler at high-stakes poker games. "Maybe. He was just trying to make money to pay you back." "Mom, he stole identities from at least 6 different people," I replied, frustrated by her continued denial. "He tried to defraud a bank using Daniel's family name. This isn't desperation. It's systematic criminal activity." Dad was more realistic, but equally overwhelmed. If even half of what Vincent's investigation shows is true, Tyler could go to prison for decades. Our son could spend the rest of his productive life in federal custody. The weight of that reality settled over all of us. Despite Tyler's betrayal, the thought of him in prison for 20 or 30 years felt disproportionate to the harm he had caused, even though the law might see it differently. Vincent is offering an alternative, I reminded them. A way to handle this that ensures Tyler faces consequences without destroying his entire life. What kind of consequences? Dad asked, though his tone suggested he might not want to know the answer. I couldn't provide specifics because Vincent had been deliberately vague about his enforcement methods. But the implication was clear. Tyler would be forced to make full restitution, abandon his criminal activities, and disappear from our lives permanently. Meanwhile, the wedding planning continued against the backdrop of Tyler's ongoing threat. Vincent's security team had identified and neutralized several attempts Tyler made to disrupt vendor arrangements. He had tried to change the delivery date for our flowers, redirect the catering services to a different location, and even cancel the string quartet we had hired for the ceremony. Each thwarted attempt revealed the depth of Tyler's malice. This wasn't random sabotage. He was systematically trying to destroy every detail Daniel and I had carefully planned for our special day. Why is he doing this? I asked Isabella during a wedding planning session at Moretti Estates. Even if Tyler is angry about being caught, why would he want to ruin my wedding? Isabella, who had remained largely silent about the family's investigation, finally shared her perspective. Some people can't bear to see others succeed when they're failing. Tyler's life has fallen apart because of his own choices, but it's easier for him to blame you and try to drag you down than to face his own responsibility. Her insight felt accurate, but depressing. Tyler wasn't just stealing money. He was trying to destroy my happiness because his own life had become unbearable. 3. Weeks before the wedding, Vincent's investigation uncovered Tyler's most ambitious scheme yet. He had been researching Daniel's family trust, attempting to find ways to make fraudulent claims against Moretti Estates assets. He's been working with a disbarred attorney in Los Angeles, Vincent explained, showing me legal documents that Tyler had attempted to file in Sonoma County Court. They were preparing to claim that Tyler had a verbal contract to purchase a portion of our Vineyard property, based on conversations that allegedly took place during his visit to your apartment. The fabricated lawsuit would have been easily dismissed in court, but it could have frozen Moretti Estates' assets during the legal process, potentially disrupting business operations and definitely creating negative publicity that could harm the family's reputation. This is when I knew we had to stop waiting for Tyler to make mistakes and start taking proactive action, Vincent said. Your brother has moved beyond petty theft into territory that threatens everything our family has built. That weekend, Vincent presented me with a comprehensive plan for neutralizing Tyler's threat permanently. The proposal was elegant in its eye, simplicity and terrifying in its implications. We're going to give Tyler exactly what he thinks he wants, Vincent explained. An opportunity to steal a large sum of money from our family. But this time, we'll be ready for him. The plan involved creating a fake business opportunity that would appear to give Tyler access to Moretti Estates funds. Vincent's team would monitor every aspect of Tyler's attempt to steal from this fabricated opportunity, gathering evidence that would support either criminal prosecution or private enforcement, depending on how they chose to proceed. Tyler will have one chance to walk away, Vincent said. If he takes the bait and attempts to steal from us, he'll face the full consequences of his choices. If he somehow recognizes the trap and abandons his criminal activities, he can disappear, with whatever money he has left and never contact any of us again. The moral complexity of Vincent's plan troubled me. We were essentially entrapping Tyler, creating a situation designed to reveal his criminal intent and provide justification for whatever punishment Vincent deemed appropriate. But Tyler had already demonstrated his intent through months of systematic fraud and attempts to sabotage my wedding. The trap Vincent was proposing would simply give Tyler an opportunity to choose between abandoning his criminal activities and facing the consequences of continuing them. "What happens after we catch him?" I asked. "That depends on his response." "When confronted with the evidence," Vincent replied. "If Tyler shows genuine remorse and agrees to make full restitution, he might find that our family can be merciful. If he continues lying and trying to manipulate the situation, he'll discover that our family can also be unforgiving." 2 days before Vincent's plan was scheduled to begin, I received an unexpected call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, Tyler's voice came through the phone with a casualness that felt obscene given everything he had done. "Hey, sis, how's the wedding planning going?" The sound of his voice triggered a rage so intense I had to sit down to avoid falling over. "You have some nerve calling me after what you've done." "What have I done?" Tyler's tone shifted to mock confusion. "I explained about the loan situation. I'm working on paying you back." "Stop lying to me," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "I know about the identity theft, the fraudulent loan applications, your attempts to sabotage my wedding. Vincent Moretti has been investigating you for weeks." There was a long pause before Tyler responded, and when he did, his voice carried a hardness I'd never heard before. "Vincent Moretti thinks he can intimidate me because he has money and connections, but he doesn't know who he's dealing with." "Tyler, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about taking what should have been mine all along. You think you're so special because you found yourself a rich boyfriend? I'm the one who should have inherited Dad's business. I'm the one who should have had the perfect life handed to me." The conversation revealed Tyler's fundamental delusion about our family dynamics. Our parents had never favored me over him. If anything, the opposite had been true. But Tyler had constructed a narrative where he was the victim of unfair treatment, which justified any actions he took to even the score. "Tyler, please listen to me." I tried one final time. "If you stop what you're doing now, if you disappear and leave us alone, Vincent might be willing to let you go without pressing charges." Tyler's laugh was bitter and unhinged. "I'm not going anywhere, Elena. Your precious wedding is going to be a disaster. Your rich boyfriend's family is going to lose more money than they can afford, and you're going to understand what it feels like to have everything stolen from you." He hung up before I could respond, leaving me shaking with a combination of fear and fury. Tyler wasn't just a criminal. He had become genuinely dangerous, someone whose desperation and delusion had transformed him into a threat to everyone I cared about. That evening, I called Vincent and told him about Tyler's phone call. His response was immediate and decisive. "We're accelerating the timeline. Tyler has made his intentions clear, and we're not going to wait for him to make good on his threats. The trap goes into effect tomorrow morning." The next morning arrived with the crisp clarity that often precedes life-changing events. Vincent's trap for Tyler had been set in motion before dawn, with his team executing a plan so intricate it resembled a military operation more than a family dispute resolution. I found myself in Vincent's study at 7 a.m., watching as he coordinated multiple moving pieces through secure phone calls and encrypted messages. The transformation in Daniel's father was remarkable. Gone was the genial wine patriarch, replaced by someone who clearly understood power and how to wield it effectively. Tyler received the initial contact an hour ago, Vincent informed me, hanging up from a call with one of his associates. A supposed investment opportunity involving a distressed vineyard property that Moretti Estates is quietly acquiring. The bait is a chance to act as a broker and earn a substantial commission by connecting us with additional investors. The fabricated opportunity was designed to appeal to every aspect of Tyler's criminal psychology. It offered legitimate-seeming access to Moretti family money, required him to recruit additional victims for his fraud schemes, and promised returns large enough to justify taking enormous risks. "How do you know he'll take it?" I asked, still struggling with the moral complexity of entrapping my own brother. "Because Tyler has already demonstrated a pattern," Vincent replied, showing me surveillance photos from the previous weeks. "He Can't resist opportunities that seem too good to be true, especially when they involve our family. His desperation and arrogance make him predictable. Daniel joined us an hour later, bringing coffee and an update from the security team monitoring Tyler's activities in Los Angeles. He's already made 3 phone calls about the investment opportunity, Daniel reported. One to a contact who's helped him with identity theft in the past, and 2 to potential victims he's been cultivating for other schemes. Watching Tyler walk into Vincent's trap felt surreal. Despite everything he had done, despite the systematic way he had betrayed my trust and threatened my wedding, part of me still saw him as the brother who had taught me to ride a bike and defended me against neighborhood bullies when we were children. "Elena," Vincent said, perhaps sensing my internal conflict, "your brother made his choices long before we created this opportunity. We're simply giving him a chance to reveal who he really is when he thinks no one is watching." By noon, Tyler had committed fully to Vincent's fabricated investment scheme. He had submitted fake financial documents claiming to represent multiple investors, provided fraudulent references, and even attempted to negotiate a larger commission by promising to bring in additional victims. "He's exceeded our worst expectations," Vincent said grimly, reviewing the evidence Tyler had provided in support of his participation in the fake deal. "The documents he's submitted aren't just false, they're sophisticated forgeries that suggest he's been planning large-scale fraud for months. The most damning evidence was Tyler's attempt to use my identity as part of his pitch to Vincent's fictional investment managers. He had created fake documents suggesting I was a co-investor in his brokerage activities, effectively trying to make me an unwitting accomplice in his fraud scheme. "He's not just stealing from you anymore," Daniel observed, looking at copies of the forged documents. "He's actively trying to implicate you in criminal activities that could destroy your career and reputation." That afternoon, Vincent's trap reached its culmination. Tyler was scheduled to meet with supposed Moretti Estates investment managers at a downtown San Francisco office building to finalize the fraudulent transaction. What he didn't know was that the meeting was being recorded, and everyone he thought he was defrauding was actually working for Vincent. I waited in Vincent's study with Daniel and Isabella, monitoring the meeting through real-time updates from Vincent's security team. The tension was unbearable, knowing that within the next few hours, Tyler would be confronted with evidence of his criminal activities and forced to face consequences that could alter the rest of his life. "Target has entered the building," came the first update through Vincent's secure phone. "He's carrying a briefcase and appears confident." 20 minutes later, "Target is attempting to execute the fraud as planned. He's provided additional forged documents and is demanding immediate wire transfers to accounts he controls." An hour after that, "Target has signed multiple documents acknowledging his intent to defraud investors. He's also made verbal statements admitting to previous criminal activities." Vincent closed his phone and looked at me with an expression I couldn't interpret. "Tyler has given us everything we need to destroy him completely. The question now is what we do with that power." The weight of that moment settled over me like a physical force. My brother's future, whether he faced federal prosecution, private consequences, or some form of mercy, depended on decisions that would be made in the next few hours. "I want to see him," I said finally. "Before any consequences are implemented, I want to look Tyler in the eye and hear him explain his actions." Vincent nodded as if he had expected this request. "The confrontation is scheduled for this evening at a neutral location. Tyler believes he's meeting to collect his commission from the fraudulent investment scheme. Instead, he'll find all of us waiting with evidence of everything he's done." The warehouse Vincent had chosen for the confrontation was in an industrial district south of San Francisco, the kind of nondescript location that suggested serious conversations happened there regularly. When I arrived with Daniel and Vincent, Tyler's BMW was already parked outside, confirming that he had walked willingly into what he thought was his greatest financial triumph. Inside, the space was starkly lit and furnished with only a conference table and chairs. Tyler sat at one end, still radiating the confidence that had characterized his criminal activities. He looked up with surprise when the three of us entered instead of the investment managers he was expecting. "What's going on?" Tyler asked, though his tone suggested he was beginning to understand that something had gone very wrong with his plans. Vincent took a seat across from Tyler and placed a thick folder on the table between them. "Tyler, we need to discuss your recent business activities." For the next hour, Vincent methodically presented evidence of every aspect of Tyler's criminal enterprise. The identity theft, the fraudulent loan applications, the attempts to sabotage my wedding, and finally, his participation in the fake investment scheme that had brought us to this moment. Tyler's response evolved through predictable stages. Initial denial gave way to minimization, then to anger, and finally to desperate attempts at manipulation. "You set me up," Tyler accused when the full scope of Vincent's trap became clear. "This whole investment opportunity was fake." "Yes," Vincent agreed without hesitation. "But your response to it was entirely real. You attempted to defraud what you believed were legitimate investors, using forged documents and stolen identities. The fact that we were monitoring your actions doesn't change your criminal intent." "Elena, you have to understand." Tyler turned to me with the pleading expression I remembered from childhood when he'd been caught breaking rules. "I never meant to hurt you. Everything I did was just trying to make money to pay you back." "By stealing more money from other people?" I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "By trying to sabotage my wedding? By attempting to implicate me in your criminal activities?" Tyler's mask finally slipped completely. "You've always had everything handed to you. Perfect grades, perfect job, perfect boyfriend with his perfect family. I'm the older son. I should have been the one with opportunities, with success, with respect." The raw jealousy in Tyler's voice was both heartbreaking and infuriating. He had constructed an entirely false narrative about our childhood and family dynamics, one that justified any harm he caused in pursuit of what he believed should have been his by birthright. "Tyler," Vincent interjected, his tone carrying decades of authority, "your choices have consequences. The evidence we've gathered tonight could result in federal charges that would put you in prison for 20 to 30 years. The color drained from Tyler's face as the full implications of his situation became clear. "You can't do this to me. I'm family." "Family doesn't steal from each other," I said quietly. "Family doesn't try to destroy each other's most important life events. The family doesn't forge documents to implicate innocent people in criminal activities." Vincent leaned forward, his presence somehow becoming more imposing despite his seated position. "Tyler, you have one opportunity to avoid federal prosecution. You will make full restitution for every dollar you've stolen, including the $45,000 you took from Elena. You will provide complete information about every identity you've stolen and every person you've defrauded. You will then disappear from California and never contact Elena or Daniel again." "And if I refuse?" Tyler asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer. "Then tomorrow morning, a comprehensive file documenting your criminal activities will be delivered to the FBI, the California Attorney General's office, and the IRS. You'll be arrested within a week and prosecuted to the fullest extent of federal law." The warehouse fell silent except for the sound of Tyler's labored breathing. The brother I had grown up with was gone, replaced by someone calculating the costs and benefits of various forms of surrender. "How do I know you won't prosecute me anyway, even if I cooperate?" Tyler asked. Vincent reached into his jacket and withdrew a sealed envelope. "Because Elena is going to make that decision, not me. Her choice will determine whether you face justice through the legal system or through our family's private arrangements." He placed the envelope in front of me, and I understood that it contained Tyler's complete file, all the evidence that could destroy his life or provide the foundation for whatever mercy I chose to show. "Elena." Tyler's voice broke slightly as he said my name. I know I made mistakes, huge mistakes, but I'm still your brother." Looking at Tyler across that stark conference table, I felt the weight of every shared memory from our childhood. The brother who had walked me to school on my first day. The brother who had stood up to bullies who teased me about my accent when we moved to California. The brother who had held me when I cried after breaking up with my first boyfriend. But I also saw the man who had systematically stolen my wedding fund, attempted to sabotage the most important day of my life, and tried to implicate me in criminal activities that could have destroyed my career and reputation. You're right, Tyler. You are my brother. But brotherhood is supposed to mean protection, not exploitation. It's supposed to mean support, not sabotage. I opened the envelope Vincent had placed before me and found inside not just evidence of Tyler's crimes, but also financial documents showing the full scope of what his criminal activities had cost his victims. Families who had lost their savings. Small business owners who had been driven into bankruptcy. Elderly people whose retirement funds had been stolen through identity theft schemes. Tyler hadn't just betrayed me. He had destroyed the financial security of dozens of innocent people in pursuit of his gambling addiction and delusional lifestyle. Tyler, I want you to look at these documents, I said, spreading some of the victim impact statements across the table. Look at the faces of the people you've hurt. Read about the grandmother who lost her entire retirement savings to one of your fake investment schemes. Read about the young couple who can't buy their first home because you destroyed their credit through identity theft. Tyler glanced at the documents but quickly looked away, unable to confront the human cost of his criminal activities. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, my voice gaining strength from moral clarity. You're going to make full restitution to every single person you've defrauded, starting with returning my wedding fund with interest. You're going to provide complete cooperation to help other victims recover their losses, and you're going to submit to monitoring and supervision to ensure you never engage in criminal activities again. And if I do all that? Tyler asked quietly. Then Vincent won't turn his evidence over to federal authorities. You'll be able to rebuild your life somewhere, far away from California, without facing decades in federal prison. Tyler looked around the room, taking in Vincent's implacable expression, Daniel's obvious disgust, and my own combination of love and disappointment. Finally, he nodded. I'll do whatever you want. Just please don't send me to prison. Vincent produced a comprehensive agreement that his legal team had prepared, outlining exactly what Tyler's cooperation would entail. Reading through it, I realized that Vincent had anticipated every aspect of this confrontation, including Tyler's eventual capitulation. The restitution requirements were substantial but fair. Tyler would surrender all assets acquired through criminal activities, including his BMW, his expensive apartment deposit, and even jewelry he had purchased with stolen money. The total value would cover my wedding fund and provide partial compensation to his other victims. More importantly, Tyler would be required to relocate to a supervised facility in Nevada that specialized in treating gambling addiction and white-collar criminals seeking to avoid prosecution. His financial activities would be monitored for 5 years, and any attempt to engage in fraudulent behavior would trigger immediate federal prosecution. This is more mercy than you deserve, I told Tyler, as he signed the agreement with shaking hands. But it's what I'm choosing to give you because you're my brother, and because I believe in second chances for people who genuinely want to change. Tyler looked up at me with tears in his eyes. Elena, I'm so sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know that I never wanted to hurt you this badly. I just got so lost, and I couldn't find a way back. For the first time in months, I glimpsed the brother I remembered from childhood, vulnerable, scared, and genuinely remorseful. It didn't excuse his actions, but it reminded me that people can lose their way and sometimes find the courage to change direction. As Tyler was escorted to a secure facility where he would begin both addiction treatment and the process of making restitution to his victims, Vincent asked me to stay behind for a private conversation. "Elena, there's one more matter we need to discuss," he said once we were alone. "Your brother's criminal activities have had consequences that extend beyond the immediate damage he caused." Vincent produced a final folder, this one containing financial documents and legal papers that appeared to relate to Moretti Estates rather than Tyler's crimes. When Tyler attempted to use our family name for fraudulent purposes, it triggered a comprehensive review of our business security and legal vulnerabilities. What we discovered is that Moretti Estates has been operating with structural weaknesses that could have allowed someone like Tyler to cause catastrophic damage. The documents Vincent showed me revealed that the Vineyard's traditional family ownership structure, while sentimental, created potential liabilities in an era of sophisticated financial crimes. A determined criminal with inside knowledge could potentially file fraudulent liens, manipulate insurance claims, or even attempt hostile takeover actions through shell corporations. The solution is to restructure Moretti Estates as a family trust with professional management oversight, Vincent explained. This provides better protection against external threats while maintaining family control of operations and profits. "What does that mean practically?" I asked, though I sensed this conversation was leading somewhere significant. "It means we need someone with both agricultural knowledge and legal expertise to serve as the trust's managing director. Someone who understands the wine industry, has experience with business law, and can be trusted completely with the family's interests." Vincent opened the folder to reveal a formal job offer and employment contract. "Elena, I'm offering you the position of managing director of Moretti Estates Trust. The salary is substantial. The benefits include an ownership stake in the operation, and the responsibilities would involve overseeing all aspects of our vineyard business." I stared at the documents, struggling to process what Vincent was proposing. The position he was offering represented more responsibility and authority than I had imagined achieving for another decade in my current career path. "Vincent, I'm honored, but I'm not sure I'm qualified for this level of responsibility." "Your handling of Tyler's criminal activities demonstrates exactly the kind of judgment and integrity we need," Vincent replied. "You uncovered his fraud, cooperated with our investigation, and ultimately chose a resolution that balanced justice with mercy. That combination of analytical skill and moral clarity is precisely what our family business requires." The offer was extraordinary, but accepting it would mean fundamentally changing the trajectory of my life and career. Instead of building my own consulting practice, I would be managing a multi-generational family business with hundreds of employees and millions of dollars in annual revenue. "I need to discuss this with Daniel," I said finally. Vincent nodded. "Of course. Take whatever time you need. But, Elena, I want you to understand that this offer isn't charity or compensation for what Tyler did to you. It's a business decision based on your demonstrated capabilities and our family's trust in your judgment." That evening, Daniel and I walked through the Moretti Estates vineyards as the sun set over Sonoma County, discussing Vincent's unexpected offer and what it would mean for our future together. "Dad's been planning this for months," Daniel admitted, as we paused beside the century-old oak tree where he had first told me he loved me. "Tyler's criminal activities just provided the catalyst for changes he already knew needed to happen." "You knew about this?" "I knew Dad was considering restructuring the business and looking for professional management. I didn't know he was planning to offer you the position, but it makes perfect sense. You understand agriculture, you have legal training, and most importantly, you're going to be family." We walked in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching the last light fade from the sky and the first stars appear above the rolling hills of wine country. "Daniel, if I accept this position, it changes everything about our relationship. Dynamic. I wouldn't just be marrying you, I'd be joining your family business in a leadership role. Is that a problem?" he asked gently. I considered the question carefully. Working for Vincent would mean giving up the independence I had worked so hard to establish. It would mean my career success would always be connected to my relationship with Daniel's family. But it would also mean building something meaningful alongside people I loved and respected. No, I said finally. I think it might be exactly what I've always wanted, even though I never imagined it would look like this. The next morning, I met Vincent in his study to accept the position of managing director of Moretti Estates Trust. As he handed me the keys to my new office and outlined my responsibilities, I realized that Tyler's betrayal had inadvertently led me to an opportunity that aligned perfectly with my professional aspirations and personal values. Elena, there's one condition to this position that I haven't mentioned, Vincent said as we concluded our meeting. If you ever have contact with Tyler again, if he violates the terms of his agreement or attempts to return to California, you must inform me immediately. You don't trust his reformation? I asked. I believe people can change, Vincent replied. But I also believe in maintaining strong boundaries to protect the people and things that matter most. Tyler forfeited his right to be trusted when he chose criminal behavior over family loyalty. 3 months later, Daniel and I were married at Moretti Estates on a perfect October afternoon. The ceremony took place in the Vineyard's rose garden, surrounded by friends, family, and colleagues who had supported us through both celebration and crisis. My wedding fund had been fully restored with interest from Tyler's restitution payments, allowing us to create the celebration we had originally envisioned. But more importantly, the experience had revealed the depth of Daniel's family's commitment to protecting and supporting the people they love. As I walked down the aisle between rows of carefully tended grapevines, wearing my grandmother's pearl earrings and carrying a bouquet of Isabella's heirloom roses, I reflected on how Tyler's betrayal had ultimately led me to a life more fulfilling than anything I had originally planned. My parents attended the wedding, though their relationship with both Daniel's family and me remained complicated. They struggled to fully accept Tyler's criminal behavior and the extent of his betrayal, but they were beginning to understand that their pattern of enabling his worst impulses had contributed to his downfall. We should have listened to your concerns about Tyler years ago, Mom said during our private conversation at the reception. We thought we were helping him by making excuses, but we were really just teaching him that actions don't have consequences. The wedding reception included a toast from Vincent that formally introduced me to the extended Moretti family network as the new managing director of their business operations. The gesture was both welcoming and strategic, establishing my authority within the wine industry community and signaling that the family had complete confidence in my abilities. 6 months after the wedding, I received a letter from Tyler at the Nevada treatment facility where he was completing his supervised rehabilitation program. The letter was brief, but seemed genuinely remorseful, acknowledging the full scope of harm he had caused and expressing hope that someday we might be able to rebuild some form of relationship. I didn't respond immediately, choosing instead to focus on my new responsibilities at Moretti Estates and the life Daniel and I were building together. Tyler's letter sat on my desk for weeks, a reminder that forgiveness is a process rather than a single decision. What do you think I should do? I asked Daniel one evening as we reviewed production reports in our shared office at the Vineyard. I think you should do whatever feels right to you, he replied. Tyler is your brother, and that relationship belongs to you to define. Dad's security concerns don't have to dictate your personal choices. Eventually, I wrote a brief response to Tyler's letter, acknowledging his apology while making clear that any future relationship would depend on his continued commitment to legitimate behavior and addiction recovery. I enclosed a photograph from our wedding, not to exclude him from our happiness, but to show him what authentic success and family support actually look like. 1 year after Tyler's confrontation and arrest, Moretti Estates posted record profits under my management. The business restructuring Vincent had implemented provided better security and operational efficiency, while the strategic planning I brought to the operation opened new markets and revenue streams. More importantly, I had found a career that combined all my interests: agriculture, business management, legal compliance, and family relationships in ways that felt both challenging and deeply satisfying. I never expected my brother's betrayal to lead to the best opportunity of my professional life, I told Isabella during one of our monthly business reviews. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us clear the path for the best things that are waiting, she replied. Tyler's actions forced you and Vincent to confront problems and possibilities that might have remained hidden for years. Looking back on the entire experience, I recognize that Tyler's theft of my wedding fund was the catalyst for changes that improved every aspect of my life. His criminal behavior revealed character flaws that needed to be addressed, family dynamics that required restructuring, and professional opportunities that might never have emerged under different circumstances. The keys to Moretti Estates that Vincent placed in my hands represented more than just a job or even a career opportunity. They represented trust, responsibility, and the chance to build something lasting with people who shared my values and supported my ambitions. Tyler had tried to steal my future by taking my wedding fund. Instead, his betrayal had led me to a future more substantial and rewarding than anything I could have planned for myself. Sometimes justice arrives in unexpected packages, and sometimes the people who try to harm us end up providing exactly the catalyst we need to achieve our greatest success. The brother who thought he was stealing from me had actually given me the greatest gift of all, the opportunity to discover what I was truly capable of achieving when supported by people who believed in me completely. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.